Good evening, folks. We're going to go ahead and get started with the meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Coffee Pot Fire Information Community Meeting for Monday, August 26th. My name is Nathan Judy. I'm the Information Officer for California Interagency Incident Management Team 5. Tonight I'll be facilitating this meeting. So I want to thank everybody for taking your time out and coming out here with us today, joining us in person, joining us online. Really appreciate you taking the time. Tonight, you're going to be hearing from folks from the Park Service, Tulare County Fire. You're also going to be hearing folks from CAL FIRE and the Incident Command Team itself. So after the formal presentation of the meeting, we're going to be able to take some questions and answers. Those are from the questions that were submitted earlier today on our email. We had cards in the back of the room, so if you folks had questions, if you please fill those cards out. What I don't want is having folks yelling out questions during the meeting itself. Folks online won't be able to hear those questions, and we want to make sure everyone can hear the questions and answers. So again, that's at the end of the meeting. Our folks will be staying around afterwards, so after we're done with the questions and answers, we're still going to hang around here and talk to you folks. We've got maps on the walls. We want to make sure you're getting all the information you need this evening as well. So with that, I want to recognize some folks in the room. We have Sergeant Jonathan Hauser in the back. Where's the Sergeant at? There he is. So in case you have any questions for the Sheriff's Department later on, we also, I think it was Gabe here tonight. Gabe, there you are. Gabe Garcia with the BLM, Field Office Manager. So again, if you have questions, you want to talk to him afterwards, they are here in the meeting this evening. If you guys have any questions, again, for those folks, we'll do that afterwards. So currently the fire is at 3,519 acres. We have 0% contained, but we'll talk about that containment a little bit later on with our operations section chief. And we have 1,142 personnel fighting this fire currently. So we got a lot of people, right? It grew a lot from the last time. We're bringing a lot of folks in, and we'll explain to that in just a little bit. With that, let's go ahead and get this meeting kicked off, get you guys going so we don't keep you here too late. We're going to bring up Clay Jordan with the Park Service.
Good evening. Great turnout. We really appreciate the interest. Obviously, we're all neighbors, and anytime there's fire on the landscape, it's really important that we get really good information, and so really appreciate that. And so proud of the room full of partners and all the different uniforms and so much help to work through this with us. Yeah. It kind of occurred to me, we throw a lot of terms around, right? When we talk about different fires, there's different terms, there's different strategies. 1 minute we're talking about suppressing fire as quickly as we can. Another times it seems like we're letting fire kind of wander on the landscape. Sometimes we're using retardant drops, other times we're putting fire on the fire. And we come to realize that creates a lot of confusion as to just what strategies and what decisions do we face as land managers when we decide how we're going to control a fire. So I wanted to take a few minutes because I know about the confusion, and people come up to me and I have a lot of conversations. And if you bear with me, I want to take a few minutes and kind of give you a little insight of what I go through in a decision process when we have an ignition, and what so many of my counterparts, some folks in the room, but especially in the Forest Service, areas where we have large amounts of public land. And that might give you a little insight, and then we're going to put it in the context of this fire. We're going to talk about where we've been, and then going to turn it over to our partners and to the team to talk about what we can expect, what the next steps are, and hopefully at the end of this hour we'll have maybe a little bit more of a complete understanding or whatnot. So I'm going to pull out a whiteboard, if you bear with me, all right? So I'm going to bring you inside a little bit inside the office of what we go through every time we have a lightning strike. And we've had about 8 or 9 lightning strike fires this year. So we've gone through this many times, the same exercise I'm going to go through. When we have a lightning strike in the park, the first thing we do is we gather up our fire folks, we gather up managers, and we decide how are we going to control this fire? Are we going to manage the fire? That's one of our key terms. Are we going to manage the fire, or are we going to aggressively, fully suppress the fire? All right? When we talk about managing the fire, what we're talking about is we may have a small fire on the landscape, and we look at creating a containment box. But it's not real close to the fire. That containment box might be taking advantage of some natural barriers, some cliffs, maybe a river. Maybe we put in some fire line on parts of it, and we basically define some kind of containment box. But it's a lot bigger than where the fire is. It's a lot bigger, but we don't ever just let a fire burn. Right, there was an old term from a long time ago, a let burn. We don't ever do that. We may manage a fire, and we define this box of boundaries, and then sometimes we may let the fire kind of move on its own towards the boundaries. Other times we'll put fire in there to help it get to the boundaries faster and to get to that point. And that is a managed fire. And it's really important that we take the opportunity to manage fires whenever we can, right? Because it's those fires that's allowing those natural processes that are burning all the excess fuels on the landscape, those fuels that build up over time and then create the catastrophic fires that we've been experiencing in California. So the more we manage fires, and we have the opportunity to manage fires, the less we can overall have experienced risk in our communities. However, the conditions have to be right at the location and at the time to manage that lightning strike, which means it has to be in a place that's usually deep in the national forest or deep in the national park. It needs to be in an area where the fuels are right, and it needs to be when the conditions are right. The winds are right, the fuel moistures are light and are low or just right, and basically a prescription type approach, just like we do with a prescribed fire. And when all those conditions are right, then we may manage that fire. But the conditions have to be right. We've managed fires. Last year, you might recall the Redwood Meadow fire up the Middle Fork. That was managed. That was a lightning strike, and we did not aggressively put out that fire, but we took advantage of the big boundaries. We got a lot of great benefit out of that. It was a very successful fire we feel good about. Earlier this year, we did it again with the Sentinel fire. Up near the Cedar Grove area, another fire we managed for the benefit of overall protection and resource benefit and all those things. However, the conditions are not conducive, and very often that is the case. That was the case in the KMP complex. That was the case with the coffee pot fire, is that immediately we met and we went over the specifics of this fire, and we said this is not a good location. There's not a fire history between it and the community. The fuels are very thick. The conditions are just not right, and the location is not good. So we pounced on it. So that's when we then go to, instead of a managed fire, that's when we do a full suppression or an aggressive suppression fire, and that's what we had with the coffee pot fire. Now, when you have a full suppression, now there's two general strategies on it. Our objective, unlike in a managed fire, where we're purposely letting that fire grow within this bigger box, when we have a full suppression fire, we want that box to be really small. We want to get that fire under control as quickly as possible. It is not about letting the fire grow. It is not. Our objective is to control that fire as efficiently and as we can. So we do what we call direct attack. And we've talked about direct attack. And this is where we get our crews in the ground and we try to get a fire line in right tight around that fire and to contain it and to get it contained. And we do this, of course, with our crews. If we have the right country, we may use bulldozers to do it. We use air support to tamp down the fire. Air support, tankers and helicopters and whatnot, they do not put out wildfires. They will slow it down and help the firefighters to get it done. This is direct attack. This is what we did in the coffee pot almost immediately. The tankers came in, the air support to start tamping it down, give the troops a chance to get in. There were helipelling, all kinds of efforts. Hotshot crews came in, and they got a line, and for a few days, that line held, and while it was closely monitored. But our firefighters who know the terrain knew that there was a real good chance it was not going to work because it was so steep and remote, this terrain. And sure enough, the line got breached, and we brought in more hotshot crews. And each time the line breached, they put in a line and tried to contain that. And it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again. Well, it doesn't take us too many times to realize when a strategy isn't working. So what firefighters do then when a direct attack is not effective to be able to control it that way is the indirect attack. And now it looks a lot like a managed fire, but it's very different. Under the managed fire, we're purposely looking at a big box. In an indirect fire, in an indirect attack, we are looking for the smallest box we can reasonably find. But when the terrain is really rough and steep, that often means bringing those lines down into the gentler country where we can fight it in a defensible location. And that has been what the teams have been doing for the last 10 days. We recognize that when we had to abandon the direct attack and go indirect, we recognized that the fire was going to get a lot bigger and closer to the communities, and it was going to take a lot of resources. So the partnership with the county, the partnership with CAL FIRE, and bringing in California Team 5 and all the resources at the disposal has all been focused on how to do this. Now, the CAL FIRE and bulldozers, and there's been all kinds of containment lines that have been put out here, secondary lines, tertiary lines, all kinds of different lines as backups in this. And the team will report out on some of those efforts. Now, here's one of the frustrating things, is that how do we measure progress on a fire? It's usually percent containment, right? Percent containment, we do not consider a fire contained unless there is black and red right up to the line, and the line has shown itself as not likely to get lost. That is percent. So when we do direct, we can eventually get to 100%. While in this case, there are all kinds of boundaries, natural boundaries, dozer lines, hand crews, all kinds of lines out here that the team will talk about, but that is not what we call a contained fire. And so it shows on our charts as 0% containment day after day. The team has been working on a good metric to help measure progress in an indirect attack in a different way. And I'm excited that they will share that with you. And so I want to emphasize that since the last meeting a week ago Sunday, right, we talked about these indirect strategies. We talked about how the fire would get larger and closer to the communities, and the fire has done exactly that. This fire, I'm happy to say, and I don't want to jinx us, but I'm happy to say it has not really thrown any surprises at this team. They have looked for ways, while putting these lines out here, they have looked for ways to try to get the box as small as possible, and they will report out on that. But it really hasn't caused any surprises. But we know it's going to be a very busy week. We're going to be putting fire on the landscape. That's where we help the fire get to those lines under conditions that we can control, the right weather, the right people in place, the right timing, and those tactics. And so they'll be reporting on that this evening, what you can expect, how this might affect you in the form of closures or anything of that sort. But I hope that kind of helps maybe fill in a couple of gaps for some of you. I know it helps me to try to keep this stuff straight in my head. But that's a little bit of insight as to the decisions that we make early in the progression of a fire. And with that, speaking of partners, it is my honor to introduce somebody who sure doesn't need introduction in this room, my Chief Charlie Norman. Thanks.
Are you going to leave the magic marker with me? Good evening, everybody. I always like to put the brief in briefing. So Clayton did a great job explaining everything and really appreciate that. But this is a cooperative effort. It's a partnership with all agencies. Our primary mission is structure protection, emergency medical service, and some wildland. Our primary purpose here is to protect structures. So we're doing a great job of that. We've got some prep done on South Fork area. But prior to this, we've done a lot of tree mortality work up here, a lot of roadside work to prevent some of these things from spreading, some of the small vehicle fires. And granted, this was a lightning strike that we had no control over. But we want to make sure that we're prepped all season, off season, we're ready to serve the community. We have approximately 30% of our department up here, either in overhead assignments, on the IMT, on a strike team. So we're very engaged in this particular incident. So we're here to serve you. I'll be very brief. I'd like to introduce the brains of our outfit. One of our agency reps, Kevin Riggy, who's going to go over some of our staffing and then some of our plans for tonight. So, Kevin? That was brief, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Did great, Chief. It's hard to follow up Chief Norman when everyone knows him and loves him, right? Good evening. My name is Kevin Riggy. I'm a division chief with Tulare County Fire Department. I've been the agency rep actually even before last Monday. The park called. I was the duty chief for the county, let me know what was going on, and we started, I got out to the PIO with the park. We started some talks, communication, CAL FIRE's PIO, just to get a game plan of what the future looked like. So great cooperation very early on in this. With that, on Monday 19th, Tulare County Fire sent up Battalion Chief Brian Duffy to become a division, and we looked at the South Fork as our primary with what the fire was doing at the time, and we set up Oak Valley Crew 8. They've been the ones out there all the way from the park boundary, working South Fork down. You've probably seen them out there, Oak Valley, Tulare County, Chipin, as well as the other folks that are out there. As of today, we've sent up a task force with 3 Type 3 engines, 2 Type 6 patrols, and a water tender, and a task force leader. And tomorrow I'm starting another division, and they're going to both be on 24, so we have 24-hour structure group supervision from Tulare County Fire as well. With all that, and I've been assigned since Monday the 19th officially as well, there's been some things, we've put out some warnings. I know that's a hot topic. Evacuations are always a hot topic. I'm sure some of you who went through the KMP complex when we were doing the warnings and orders during that time, you probably received a notification via TC Alert. I see a lot of head shaking yes. TC Alert is a great program. It's a messaging system. Okay, you got a phone call, right? And it was an audio recording telling you the boundaries of that polygon of what was going into an order or a warning. Did you see anything? Absolutely not. I see the head no. So what we recognized a while back, Tulare County, is we needed to provide you a better product. Okay? So we went out and found a program called Zone Haven, which is Genesis. Okay, and I know recently with what we did our warnings in Genesis and TC Alert, you got the notification, whoever's in the warning area. And now on our social media sites, we've been posting these zones. Everyone's, I don't know what the zone is. Well, guess what? Now we've put the link in those messages. You can click the link, join into Genesis, find out where you're located if you have a handheld device. It tells you exactly where you're at. Matter of fact, if you're driving down the road and you leave your normal spot and you hit another zone that is in a warning or order, it will notify you of that, even if you're not in that normal area or living there. So this product, we now have QR codes on the walls. All the questions that are going to stem from what I'm going to tell you in a minute. I'll be in the back corner with TCSO. The Tulare County PIO is here, Jennifer Fox. She's been the main advocate for getting this pushed out to our community members. And we want to make sure you're aware of what it is, how to get to it. TC Alert is not going away. We're doubling our efforts to make sure you have the information you need, and Genesis is bringing it to you faster. That way we get that notification to you. I don't want to trip on anything. I'm a big guy to get picked up. We want to make sure you have the information at your fingertips, and that's what this Genesis platform is going to bring to you, okay? With that, we've put posts out, the incidents put posts out on how to sign up for the Genesis application. With that, beautiful, we have a picture already up. So has anyone already went and signed up for Genesis? Absolutely great stuff. As soon as you get in there, it's at your fingertips and it's easy, okay? As long as you know how to work a cell phone, right, or an iPad. Okay, you can use this on a desktop. You can get into the link on your desktop and you can get in there if you're not good with the cell phone, and you can still use the application. Because now it's bringing you, did you guys have this at KMP for the evacuations? Nope. This product that we are now producing to the communities of Tulare County is so much more proficient and efficient for our community members. We're very proud of it. So as of the other day, I don't have the exact date, I apologize for that. We put zones, TLC 94B Bravo, the Echo 128 Bravo. These zones are generated by the system. We put them in warnings because of what the fire was doing, okay, at the time. Warnings, be ready, be prepared, okay? What you're going to find out through the operations section tonight is their plan, okay? And with that plan, Tulare County Sheriff's Department, Tulare County Fire Department do plan on to put 2 more zones into a warning tonight after this meeting. We're going to be putting a warning into Echo 127B Bravo. And I know you can't see it, but this zone splits Cahoon Mountain, okay? And then this zone, I don't believe there's any structures in it from what we identified, but 128 Alpha. And it'll paint a better picture. You're probably, Ops hasn't told me what's going on. So you're like, why? As soon as operations talks about what they're going to do, you're going to go, oh, okay, I understand why. And I'm talking warnings tonight, okay? TCSO after this meeting will be out knocking on some of those doors. It's not going to affect too many structures. I believe we only have about approximately 10 along South Fork in there. They'll be making those door knocks communication. And then what we're going to do is we'll be pushing this out on social media. You're going to see these zones again like we did on the last one. We're going to have a link for everybody, whoever's online, to join the Genesis platform. We want you to do that. It's such a good application. And you will know if you're in these zones. One of the biggest things was, thank you. One of the biggest things was, I don't know where I'm at in this zone. I showed a couple of nice people tonight. I don't have this zone as my home. I showed her my application. It showed the little blue dot, and it tells you what zone you're in. It tells you if it's in an order. It tells you if it's in a warning. It's such good information at your hand, right at your hand. So I wanted to try to keep it short. I wanted to make sure you knew we're going to go into a warning. One last thing. When Ops tells their story, it's going to paint a picture. Echo 128B Bravo. It's dealing with approximately 13 structures from the boundary over. Will go into an order at some point. Okay? You'll know why when Ops talks about their plan. Okay? When that happens, there'll be we'll discuss it. That'll execute. All the proper notifications will happen. Please download the Genesis app. You will know as soon as it happens, okay, in the coming days, once you hear the plan from Ops. With that, I will be here after with Tulare County Sheriff's, Tulare County PIO over here in the corner. We can help try to walk you through scanning the QR code and getting it on your phone. It is that important. We're going to stick around and try to help you out if you can't get it yourselves. With that, a lot of good information. I'm passionate about it. Sorry. Fire Chief, CAL FIRE, Andy Turner is next.
Thank you. Kevin, that was an awesome sales pitch, and I'm even going to sign up immediately following this. Thank you so much for your attendance tonight. I really, really appreciate the time. CAL FIRE is in unified command with this incident management team and with the park on this incident, and so I wanted to explain what that means. Every fire we have, every incident we have, there is a incident commander, one guy in charge of all of it, the finance, the logistics, the operation, all the stuff. So in this instance, because we have some jurisdiction here, we have entered into unified command with this team. And so what that means is we bring an incident commander to the table. We have one of our CAL FIRE employees sitting with the incident commander, helping drive the decisions on what the priorities are, what the plan is. We are able to bring money to the table. We're able to bring resources to the table. And we're able to bring some authorities to the table on behalf of the staff, or the state. So Ryan Pack is our unified IC. Ryan, if you'll raise your hand, he's a local Three Rivers guy, so he knows very well what these hills are all about. So what we've done here is, what I've got under my command is I've got 11 fire engines, 9 fire crews, 2 bulldozers, a couple airplanes, some heavy helicopters. I'm committed to having all of those resources here. Most of them already are. The state has backfilled our area here in the Tulare unit with a balance of resources that is equal to that number. I'm committed to having all of those also here, should they be needed. My director gave a briefing this afternoon to all the executive management in the state. He specifically called out the coffee pot fire and the commitment of the state to support it. And so if needed, that table will tilt and the big red army of state resources will be here. And so I'm committed to provide that as well. The problem is this incident isn't resource deficient. It isn't that we don't have enough fire engines or crews to put it out. It's that, as Clay was mentioning, it's in a place where we cannot put in effective fire line. It is sheer granite cliffs and boulders the size of a 2-story house. And there's just no trench big enough to catch the tree as it falls over and lights fire down below. And so what we do have, though, is we have that cooperation that all the partners have talked about. We deliver fire service up in this area on a day-to-day basis in between 3 agencies that have vastly different missions. We have the Park Service, the state, and the county, and we all have a different marching order from our bosses. But what we've been able to do up here is deliver a fire service to you in a way that you don't notice that there's a difference. We pick up the slack for each other, we play to each other's strengths, and we do so efficiently, and our relationships are so strong that when we get a complex incident like this, it's very easy for us to come together, join forces, force multiply, and handle something like this. So you've got that going for you. We've also got a measure of control here. Usually the fire does something and we have to react to it. And we have to adjust and change our tactics. In this case, we're going to create the strategy and the tactic, and the fire is going to react to us. And so we're really, really in a good place here. And so I want you to know that those things, coupled with a very capable and competent incident management team, and everything that we can do as a community to work together, we're going to be in pretty good shape. So that's what I'm committed to, and we're going to be here together. We'll get through it together, just like we've done in the past. We'll be right here until the end. So that's all I have. Mike Winch is going to come up. He's from operations from the team, and he's going to tell you about what the plan is. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Winch. I'm a planning ops trainee with California Team 5. I'm going to come out and give you an update on what we're doing on the fire and where we're going with this fire. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are staring up at the hill from their front yard or their backyard and seeing a fire up on the hillside. So my goal right now is just kind of paint a picture. You're probably wondering what people are doing up there to put that fire out for you, and we'll walk through that right now. And I'll try to show you where we're at today and where we're going in the next couple of days. I'm sure this is a little difficult to see. It's a pretty small TV for a really big room. But on this, as we talked about earlier, we have lines that we put in place, some primary control lines. We vetted these lines out. We talked for quite some time. We worked with our fire behavior analysts, with our incident meteorologists. We worked with the local fire partners we have here, and we worked within our own operational section. And we began looking at where we felt we could confidently hold this fire, where we had a high probability of success, and we started there. We put that in. It comes out to almost 28 miles of line that would need to be put in for that fire to hold on lines that we're comfortable with. And we've accomplished nearly 18 miles to put us at 63%. Again, there's over 1,000 people up on the hill right now working really, really hard to get that put in and looking to shrink that box as we've talked about. We can go to the next slide here. So today, a lot of great work was done. We've talked, if you've been following on social media, the line from South Fork Drive up to Case Mountain, then down to the north, Mineral King Road, that's been put in. Whether it be dozer line, hand line, or a roadway system, it's in place. We've gotten our hose and our water handling system in place. A significant portion of today just went to, I've spoken to the Fulda tanks that we have to bring up there. They're like above ground pools, hold a couple thousand gallons of water. And I'm sure you all are very well aware there's plenty of water at the bottom of the hill, and there's not much water at the top. So a lot of efforts going into getting water from the bottom to the top, and at times we're using helicopters. They're dipping their buckets in the river down below, and one at a time they're just taking a couple thousand gallons and using the helicopter to drop it in there, and now we have water. So that's been a big relay for us. But we've continued to do that today. We finalized our hose lay on the north side of Case Mountain down to Mineral King Road. So right now, this is buttoned up and done, and we've spent today, and we're going to spend some portion of tomorrow validating those lines one more time. We're going to look for any weaknesses we can find, working with our specialists on the team and the locals here, finding those weak spots if we have any, and mitigating them before we begin with the next phase of our plan. We're continuing to work on Mineral King Road. For those of you who traverse that road daily, you're seeing us out there. We're trying to reduce the fuel loading on the underside down below by the river, get rid of those fuels, and we're simultaneously just trying to chip them and get rid of that so we don't have a bunch of windroad vegetation that you have to weave your way through. If you come out into the park, we've inserted those 3 fire use modules. The fire use modules are 10-person crews, and we fly them out. That's their specialty. That's what they do, is operate in remote environments like that. And we'll put them out there for a week or so, and we'll supply them with supplies. They're continuing to look like the Park Service has talked about. There's a series of large rock formations, fire scars, waterways, and that's what they do. They're able to put a limited impact on the landscape out there while confining and containing that fire's edge. So they're working hard. We have park resources in there. A park fire ecologist is in there working with our folks, and we're doing good work up in the Sequoia Groves as well as we look and scout those containment lines. As we come down to the bottom edge of the fire, they've completed their work on South Fork Drive. We've prepped that road out. We feel like it looks real good. We've fixed the road that goes out to the campground and we've taken some equipment out there, opened that up so we can park crews, and now we're starting to walk crews out towards that Ladybug Trail system. And same situation once we get into the park, working diligently with our National Park Service partners on what the best piece of line looks like out there to capitalize on those rock formations and previous fire scars. As we talked about in the beginning of this, we're continuing. We're very happy with our primary containment lines. We're very happy with them, but we would like to shrink this box where possible and limit the fire perimeter if we can. We're continuing. We have H3, which is Hellespot 3. Use that as a landmark. It's up near Case Mountain, and from there, we're following a ridge line down to the lookout point on Mineral King Road. It's a pretty good ridge, and we're trying to open that up. We've spent about 3 days. We have 3 bulldozers and 2 crews on that. They're currently working on it as we speak, trying to open that up and bring that fire perimeter in a little tighter. And again, from H3, our Hellespot 3 up top, we're coming down south on a line that comes down to the south, my apologies, to Salt Creek Road, and its junction here with South Fork Drive. And again, that would shrink in that perimeter and bring it in a little bit tighter. Okay, so that's what we did today and last week. And where are we going now? Now we're going to pivot. We built that box, and now we want to start seeing some containment. We went over the fact that we have to have fire's edge on our line. That's where we're going to hold fire. That's where we're going to start showing some containment. So we are going to begin with some planned ignitions, some firing ignitions. This has not been a rash decision. We've spent a significant amount of time planning this out over the last several days through our partners, through specialists, and through all of our disciplines on the team. We would begin this up high. And what we do is we backfire. We utilize drip torches by hand, and we just put fire on the ground, and it just backs away from the road from us. This is the best way we can control fire. It limits the intensity. It limits those flame lengths. We can control it that way. What we're trying to avoid is any fire running uphill where it's going to have a high mortality on the trees and damage them. So we're looking for prescribed fire effects, which I think the next couple speakers are going to really dive into. So we're going to work that around our primary line. We're going to start this tomorrow if conditions warrant it. So we just came out of a low pressure system. Our temperatures kind of went down and our relative humidities went up, which we'll talk about. So we got to wait for the right window of time for the fuels to be receptive to burning. And when they are, our box is ready. Operationally, we're ready. We've tested ourselves. We're waiting on weather now, and we're not going to force it. Like we've been told, this fire hasn't forced our hand. So we can be diligent, we can be methodical, and we can make the right decision as we go. And we will pull fire all the way down this system of ridges, roads, and hand lines, and ultimately tie it into the South Fork Road. And this will be over a series of days. This isn't going to be a one-night event where we put a lot of heat on the ground. This is going to take the balance of the week. We're going to really take our time. It'll be done in coordination with lighters, lighting stuff by hand on the ground, in addition to helicopters backing fire down that hillside. So we really limit intensity and damage to the ecosystem. So again, and we'll get it down to South Fork Road, and the goal is to work it down South Fork Road towards the park boundary where we can work it into a confine and contain strategy with fire scars that exist out there. In closing, we're ramping up. You saw the numbers really increase, so tonight you're going to see a lot more resources on South Fork Drive. There's going to be a lot of movement in there, and those people are there to monitor that fire, patrol, and protect you. Tomorrow night, we're going to stand up a full night operation moving forward. We'll have 24/7 coverage of the fire, where if the weather gives us the window to safely bring fire down and gain containment, we're going to take advantage of it, and we'll be out there. I think that's all I have. I do want to thank you for welcoming us into your community, Tulare County. You've been super supportive of us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. And I'll turn it over to Eric Kurth, our incident meteorologist.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out. And like Mike mentioned, I'm an incident meteorologist, and my job is to help provide weather support for the fire. And the reason for that is, well, weather actually started this fire, lightning, and weather actually drives the fire. It determines how quickly it moves, where it goes. So I'm here to help provide that support, and working with fire behavior, they use that weather information to determine how the fire is going to behave. So like Mike mentioned, we had a cool system which brought higher humidity and lower temperatures over the weekend. And I'm sure you all noticed, it really didn't feel like August, did it? It felt more like October. And yeah, that was beneficial. I mean, that helped slow the fire down, providing more moisture for the fuel. And that allowed them to do all this great work, which Mike just talked about. And that's really a good thing, to buy a little time to get these projects together. So we're looking now for this window of good weather, and overall it looks pretty favorable for what we have coming. Now temperatures are starting to edge up, and humidity is starting to go down, which is actually in this case favorable because they're going to be putting some fire on the line. So looking out over the next week, so we went from that cool, moist system. We're seeing temperatures coming up, staying around 80. And this is up at the Case Mountain Raws. So this is elevated up where much of the fire is right now. So these temperatures will be warmer at some of the lower elevations, but this gives you an idea of the trend. And you can see it's fairly constant through the week. We're in a fairly quiet, benign pattern. We're not seeing any big wind shifts. We're just general southwest wind in the afternoon and maybe some light northeast overnight, downslope winds. So this is very typical for this time of year. Nothing special, nothing weird, no big wind reversals, no cold fronts, no northeast winds, which you might know it can be pretty problematic. So we're looking at a pretty quiet pattern, and in terms of conditions, it's very typical for August. And so I'm going to be working with fire behavior, and we're going to be looking at providing that information, seeing how the fire is going to behave with that weather, and hopefully everything goes great. So with that, I'm going to introduce Jeff Shelton, who's going to talk a little bit about fire behavior and how weather is interacting with that.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Jeff Shelton, and I do fire behavior on the team. So my role is really two things. I provide insight to the team on the speed of the fire and the intensity of the fire. By understanding the speed of the fire, we can kind of time tag what we're doing. It provides us an understanding of the strategy we need to implement. Can we win the race of putting line in before the fire gets there? Can we get our firefighters out of harm's way, or are they safe to be there? Can we get you out of harm's way in a time that's advantageous to put this all to bed? And then the intensity. Understanding the intensity is really important, and we measure that in flame lengths. By understanding the intensity, we go beyond that strategy piece, and we start understanding our tactics we can bring to bear on this fire. Because it's a lot different if you have 1 foot flame lengths, the tools that you have at your disposal and you're gonna need, versus a wall of fire that's 2 stories high. It's a whole different set of problems. And so that's really my job on the team. And so we have kind of a rule that we base all of our actions on current and expected fire behavior. So that's what I'm gonna take you through real quick here, is the current fire behavior and where we're going. And we use basic fire triangle. Fire is a function of the fuels, the weather, and the topography, or the terrain. And when you've heard the word fuels quite a bit today, I look at fuels differently. You look at fuels as grass and brush and timber. I look at it as stored energy. It's just energy that's ready to be released. And so we're going to talk about that. So currently, the fire is burning in the high country. Started up high and it's backing down. It's moving through dead material, all the stuff that's on the ground. But this dead material is not real small, and it's not grass. It's logs and big logs and sticks and branches. And so it's moving across the forest floor, backing downhill. Fire likes to move up, so it's kind of chewing its way down, looking for opportunity like a hungry teenager in your refrigerator, okay? And so it's moving downhill through those fuels. Now the weather, it started out typical August, and we've been on this kind of roller coaster. We had some weather a couple days ago that was atypical. But now we're trending back to something that's more normal for this time of year. And so we're not really surprised, like you've heard, of what's going to happen and what has been happening. Now the topography part of what's going on is this, and this is from the north side, looking from Mineral King up towards the top of Homer's Nose, somewhere in that smoke. You can see it's just kind of backing and chewing through this very steep terrain. The way this fire has been spreading is those large fuels are burning, they're losing their integrity on the landscape, and they're rolling downhill. That hot material, it catches fire, and we talked about fire likes to burn up here, it burns back up, and then the fire catches up to it. It's kind of moving across the landscape like lava. If you look at that progression map there, that big colorful map, that's 2 weeks of growth. And even though that fills a whole map, that's about 3,000 acres in about 2 weeks. So it shows you this incremental moving across the landscape. So that's the way it's been moving through the fuels, weather, and topography. Let's talk about the expected, what's coming up. As it reaches the lower elevations, it runs out of the classic timber model and it moves into the brush and it moves into the grass at the lower elevations, okay? The fuels that we were experiencing up top have a lot of stored energy in them. They have what we call high resistance to control, some fancy terms, right? But as it gets into this type of fuel model, when it gets lower, these fuels are much smaller. They're on our terms. They have a less resistance to control. We can use bulldozers. We can change the fuel moisture by putting water on it and putting them out. Up high, we can't do that. It's just a simple math problem of heat and energy that's available, okay? So as we're doing this and we're bringing the fire down to a place that we can do it on our terms, it's gonna hit this brush area and these grass areas. It takes a long time for a log in your fireplace to burn down, right? But once it hits this grass, all that energy gets released at once. So understand, when it hits this and all that energy gets released at once, you're gonna see fire. You're gonna see smoke. But once that energy is gone, it's gone. And then we use that, what we call the black, to really solidify our lines. And we're gonna bring that black all the way to our control lines, and you're gonna see that, that measure of containment that everybody's been looking for jump up rapidly. So we only have a couple options when we're talking about fire behavior. We can starve the fire, cut off its energy source, it doesn't have anything else to burn. That's by putting in lines, those containment lines that we're bringing the fire to. We can also starve it by doing the firing operations. And we can do it at a time and a place of our choosing, and that's what we're doing with the weather. So we're waiting for the weather to go from something that we're gonna be managing intensity to somewhere where we're gonna need to maintain intensity. We're gonna have to add extra energy to get it to do what we want, and that's where we wanna be. We wanna be in the driver's seat. We wanna have our foot on the accelerator and the brake to be able to do what we want. And that's what's coming up as we back that fire down to our control lines. So it's a matter of tempo. You heard our partners from CAL FIRE talk about the pace and tempo. When we get to a fire, the fire is outpacing us, and we're trying to catch up as fast as we can. But then we quickly put the right resources in place, and our tempo matches the fire, but then when we get cool, humid weather, we don't take a break. We keep our foot on the accelerator, and that's what you're seeing on the line. You're seeing the effect of people working together and getting the incident to a place that we're gonna do some really good work in the next several days, but we're gonna do it the right way. And we're gonna base it on the fire behavior, and we're gonna do it to leave you a landscape that is not devastated. We're gonna do it to leave you a place that you still wanna recreate, you still wanna look at, okay? So those are important to us as well as they are to you. Because in 2 weeks, I'm not gonna be here, but you guys are gonna be here for forever. And we respect that, and we value that, and that's what we're gonna do. So thank you for giving us your trust in this, and we're gonna work as hard as we can to earn that trust. So thank you, and I'm gonna introduce Chrissy Brigham from the Forest Service.
Thank you. It's great to be almost last. So I hope you wrote your questions on your cards because it's almost question time. And hopefully you got a lot of your concerns answered already. We're going to take a very brief detour. I'm Christy Brigham. I'm the Chief of Resource Management and Science for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. And I was asked, we have had some concerns expressed to us about what is happening where the fire is burning in these forests, and specifically in sequoia groves, and where all the foxes and mountain lions and deer and lots of other things that people who live here like to see are living. So I just want to quickly talk about 4 things. It's going to go super fast, I promise. So the first is that As you all know, you chose to live in a beautiful place that has been shaped by fire for millennia. This is a fire-adapted system. So we may not like this fire that is threatening to burn into our community. We don't want that to happen. That is firefighter safety and community safety and protection of life and property are the #1 objectives on this fire, as they should be. But even with a fire that we don't want, there are things we can do working with the team to get as much from the ecosystem's perspective, good fire, and as little bad fire as possible. And that's where resource advising comes in. But before that even happens, I want to give a shout out to the Three Rivers Fire Safe Council and the work that Chief Norman mentioned, working when our community is not on fire to help make our community more fire safe. Because we will continue to have fire in our community. It's part of what makes it beautiful and scary all at the same time. So what do we do when we have this wildfire that we're trying our darndest to put out? How do we work with the team to get as much good fire ecologically and also limit the impacts of fire suppression actions? So we have resource advisors, and those advisors have different areas of expertise, whether that's wildlife or archaeology or tribal interests. We have a great tribal liaison, Dirk Charlie, on this incident. And we're all working together with the team, and the team brings its own expertise in how to use tactics, like you just heard, to get low intensity fire, which is what these forests are adapted to. And you've heard about fuels and terrain and weather. And we've had some amazing work on this fire already. The CAL FIRE Tulare unit did some amazing work in the Sequoia Groves, working in areas that BLM had already done a lot of great work to reduce fuels. And that's one way you can change fire intensity. So we've had the time and we've had the resources, and they've been out there reducing fuels to reduce fire intensity when fire gets into those groves and have beneficial fire for those sequoias that are adapted and need that fire to regenerate and stay healthy. We also had an opportunity working with the team and their expertise and Helicopter 552 from our park unit to put some fire on the landscape to get backing fire in Eden Creek Grove. And that, some people were concerned. It seems crazy. Like, what are you doing throwing flaming ping pong balls into these giant trees that you told me you were really freaked out about? But it's exactly what has been described, taking fire from the top down low to have that lower intensity fire. So really great work working together with the team to try and get good fire, not bad fire, ecologically, not just for the trees, but for all the plants and animals that live and make this community so rich. So we really appreciate that teamwork, and I just wanted to mention it so that when you do see that fire and small white smoke and it's creeping downhill, that's from an ecological standpoint, that's not a bad thing. And then the last thing, see, I told you I'd be fast. When this is all said and done, then we will be out in those groves and on that landscape measuring the effects and understanding where did we get good fire and what tactics did we use that generated that good fire so that we can do that in the future when we need to. And these really are tried and true tactics that we've been implementing in prescribed fires and managed fires for decades. So, the team and the people helping them really do know what they're doing, and just thank you so much to all our partners. And I think last is Jason Schillinger, who is one of the California Team 5 Incident Commander trainees. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I know we're almost about an hour in, so I'll make sure. I want to get to these questions because this is important stuff to get out there and pass. So, excuse me. 10 days ago, we took command on August 17th. I know my team and cooperators, we've been working super hard on just making these contingency lines and these indirect lines. This country is tough. I know a lot of you guys have been up there and know exactly where it's at, but looking on a map, it does not do justice looking on something that's just flat. It's very, very tough country, and it's just not safe to put firefighters in. And that's why we've gone out some distance from where the fire is, and we've created those lines because we're gonna stop it, but we got to do it safely. And my number one priority as incident commander trainee is to make sure that our firefighters are safe. That's number one for me. I know it's tough coming into a public meeting and you're like, man, this team's been here for 10 days and we got 0% containment. I've been on this team for 14 years, and this is probably one of the first times I've come to a public meeting halfway and going, man, we got 0% containment. But I do want to assure, as operations and Chief Ricky has talked about, 63% of indirect line has been completed. That's almost 2/3 of the line's been completed where that fire is going to be coming to. The other 2/3 is going to be on that east side out there towards the park where it's real rocky and hard to really tie some of the fire in. So we've been doing a lot of work with the resources we have, and we have the right resources. We really do. We've got some great hotshot crews, dozers, water tenders, equipment from Tulare County. We have what we need, and we're doing a good job out there. My team, we are very transparent. We are very honest to the community. We encourage you guys to ask your questions. Afterwards, if your question doesn't get answered, all of us are going to be around. You know, if you have a question specifically for somebody, go up and talk to them. We're very open and honest and want to make sure you guys get the information you guys need because this is the community you guys live. Like you mentioned, here in a couple, another week, we're going to be leaving as a team and another team comes in. We want to make sure that we have a good relationship with you before you go because you guys are going to be staying here. Again, thank you for everyone coming out. Please write down those questions, and we'll get those answered for you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. So that concludes the formal presentation this evening. We're going to bring up folks that have written questions, folks that have put questions online. We're going to bring up our operations section chief again. He's got some questions.
Okay, folks, I got handed 3 questions, and one of them seems to be a pretty hot topic this evening. Can you explain why there is 0 containment, even though there has been light fire activity recently and the fire is under full suppression? Great question. A lot of my friends and coworkers who are on other fires are texting me and saying, what are you guys doing? You can put some containment on that? 100% understand, and that's going to change as we shift strategies into what we're looking at tomorrow when we start putting some planned ignitions on the ground and start bringing fire down. But just understand too, that could completely be completed. We bring fire all the way down, things go great, we walk it into the park and tie it into a fire scar, and you might not see a little containment for a bit. We have to hold that for a couple days, mop that up aggressively, and make sure that's not going to hop out. That is what containment line is to us, is we have a high level of confidence that that fire is parked. So it might be a few days after we bring it down. We do have to work that with all that water we've been slugging up the hill over the last few days. A question about direct and indirect control lines. We had a great presentation about that with the Park Service about what direct versus indirect is. We've predominantly been doing indirect line on this fire up until tomorrow. This planned ignition is considered a direct attack. We are bringing fire right to our planned control lines. That's a direct attack. So we'll be changing strategies tomorrow under this full suppression mission. And a great question, how are you planning on protecting Silver City? Fantastic. Oh, great. So Silver City, how we're going to keep this fire from running up the drainage, I can understand if you look at the topography and you live there and understand it. The ability to fire to move its way up some of those drainages. Luckily, we have some fire history maps behind the Eden fire. Oh, it's right here. The Eden fire is assisting us with reducing fire spread in that direction. We have a large rock outcropping that runs 80% of the way down into the the river proper, which is another holding feature. We've gotten down in there and looked at the fuel moisture. As we start diving into those riparian areas, our fuel moistures are going to come up, our relative humidity will come up, and temperatures will go down. We feel that it's going to be hard to have fire spread down in that river drainage based on what we're seeing. We would have to see some unusual fire activity of continued rollout below itself and then running up, rollout and running up. Our intent going into this, when we do decide to bring fire down this north side, is to bring fire here and square it off, bring it down so it's backing in an even line. Our goal is never to have one piece of fire get below and make a sustained run up. So we will work hard over the course of many shifts to get this line straight and allow it to back naturally under the conditions we're looking for. and we feel that'll be fully successful in tying in with what the fire users are doing out on the other side of the fire scar to bring hand line and containment line off to the east. Thank you for the great questions.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. We've got some other questions that everyone's talking about, right, is smoke. Where's the smoke going? What's the smoke going to do? So with that, we're going to bring up our air resource advisor to talk about smoke.
My name's Andrew Schauer. I'm the Air Resource Advisor trainee on this fire, and our job is, that's just a fancy way of saying smoke forecasting. So part of what we do is publish these public outlooks, which I'm sure, has anyone seen these? We publish them through fire.airnow.gov. They've also been printed out and posted around. I'm getting some nods. So for those of you who haven't checked it out, it's a daily product at the minimum that will update as needed. So sometimes you might see those updated later in the day if something changes. But again, fire.airnow.gov is where you can find the most recent info. One question we got is regarding smoke impacts in broader areas other than what we're currently reporting. And specifically, they asked the coffee pot fire is impacting Kernville, Ridgecrest, Lone Pine, Bishop, June Lake, and Mammoth. Can your maps address the smoke impacts in these areas? And the answer is yes, they can. And what we do, we're constantly reevaluating the size of the box that we're looking at to see the big question that we're answering when we're just deciding on the scope of where we're publishing an outlook is the coffee pot fire the main factor driving air quality in that area. So yes, you know, some of this smoke is making it into bigger areas, but there's also, this time of year, there's fires all across the West. They're also contributing to that. There's also just industrial and ag operations are also a contributing factor. So what we're paying attention to, we're looking at weather monitors, satellite imagery, talking to people that are on ground, getting out there and looking ourselves. And once we're seeing that, yep, you know, the coffee pot fire is the main factor here, our smoke is what's driving this, then we're going to expand the box and add it. And we actually did that this morning. So for those of you who've been looking every day, you might have noticed that we started covering a little bit broader area today, and we'll continue adjusting that as needed. So for now, with those outlier zones, there's just too many other things, other elements at play for us to say, you know, this is coffee pot fire smoke. That's the main factor. If that changes, then we'll add them. The other question was, please explain in layman's terms how these smoke reports are compiled and the mapping process that goes along with it. So it's a combination of looking at weather data, fire data, monitor data, looking at weather models. We're sitting in an office right next to the fire behavior analyst and the incident meteorologist, so getting the most current information from them. And we're looking at all this, trying to figure out how much smoke is going to be made and where it's going to go. So there's a lot of elements going into it, but really it's just looking at the fire and the weather and seeing where it's going to go. As far as the maps, that fire.airnow.gov has a map of all the sensors, the automated sensors that are recording hourly data, air quality index data. So we're keeping track of that, looking at trends during the day and predicting what's going to happen the next day. So those are kind of the elements that go into it. There's some of it's automated, a lot of it has to go through a human process, so weighing all the factors and then adjusting as needed. Thanks everyone for asking questions. If you have anything else that comes up, we're going to be hanging around here after the meeting, so you can find myself or Jen over there. We've got these same logos on our shirts. Or you can also, on our outlooks, there's going to be contact information there for who you can get a hold of. So it'll be one of the two of us if you need to call or send an email. We're around. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. That was a great explanation. Please visit that website, especially if you're even out of the area itself. You can put in your zip code there and find out what the smoke outlook is in your local area. So check out that website. It's really great. I have another question about closure stuff. We want to bring you back up, Clay Jordan, Superintendent with the Parks.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I have two questions. I'm going to address the other one first. And then I'm going to invite Chief Briggs up, maybe help me take on the question about closures as we look into a crystal ball a little bit. But first of all, there's a question, why is this strategy different from what was stated last week regarding the initial attack? I suspect we may have confused, caused some confusion along the way. The strategies that we talked about a week ago Sunday is exactly the strategies that we've been talking about tonight. So in the initial attack, originally we had that direct attack, that aggressive direct attack, worked for a little while. Eventually it did breach, and then we kept at that direct attack after about whatever it was, 10, 12 days, I forget what it was. Then we saw that it was simply not working. We then shifted to the indirect attack. That's when we brought in the teams and all the additional resources. And now, as we just heard, with all that preparation and that indirect attack, all those indirect containment lines, we now have the opportunity to go direct on this fire again. But this time, we've got favorable conditions, unlike what we had when we were originally doing a direct attack on top. If that doesn't get to what the question is, please track me down afterwards or one of my colleagues, and we'll try to clear up where I may have confused somebody at some point. Okay, so a lot of people are wondering about closures and evacuation orders, and Chief Briggs walked through the process, the lines and all that stuff. Yeah, so Chief Riggs will do that with me. I'll say that as far as Mineral King, because Mineral King is a combination of jurisdictions, National Park Service, and the county, ultimately the county sheriff's department. What has been really neat about this process is how well Sergeant Hauser with the sheriff's department has been taking guidance from the Tulare County Fire and working with CAL FIRE and with the National Park Service and Team 5 for making those decisions and points. We think, as far as Mineral King, we recognize that it's summertime. We got a holiday weekend coming up. There's a lot of recreational opportunities. People want to use the cabins. Understand that this is a forecast. Things can change in a fire, but we don't believe we're going to need an evacuation order prior to the end of the holiday weekend. Keeping in mind that it is one road in, one road out. And so Mineral King, when you look up at Silver City and beyond, the fire may not threaten ever at any point those sections up there, but the fire will come close to the road, way down towards Oak Ridge and down around the park boundary. And so in those areas, that may drive an evacuation, and chances are it probably will, but probably not this week. Well, that's what we're hoping. You should always be prepared, and things can change, and we'll address that. All right, Kevin, how about South Fork? You want to talk about South Fork?
I went over it pretty briefly because what's the app I want you to sign up for? Genesis, yes. Thank you. So again, last week, I don't remember the date, we went into a warning on these two zones. We hit that. Tonight, right after this meeting, we wanted to bring it to you, face value, talk to you guys, tell you why. You heard operations. I hope that painted that picture. You can already see where this border is at. It's pretty much the line that they're talking about, okay? So our due diligence for you to make sure you're warned, ready, we're putting these two zones into a warning tonight. TCSO will be out to the structures on South Fork, knock, let them know what's going on, why they're in a warning if they're not here or online, because the operations are dictating that, okay? Eventually, as you heard from operations today, as that fire comes down, I can't have the people in these homes and everything else when the holding features and everything are right there, so we need to get you out. We're trying to wait as long as possible to where it's safe. Huge coordination with the incident management team, The F bands, we've had great meetings. All this behind the scenes stuff are meetings and meetings, data. This is all data-based decision making for me especially, because I don't want you out of your homes, trust me. Okay, so we're at the 2. So the next question is what ifs? There's a lot of what ifs, and that's what I have to do as well, using the data from the incident management team. So it's what if? They have their control features. Well, they've had other control features. Well, if it comes out, well, then we got to start, warnings and that process. And that's all based off data. What's the fire doing? Me working with the incident management team. Them calling me, letting me know what it's doing. I tell you, I'm getting 15 calls a day. Great communication from the team to the cooperators. Okay? That way we make sure we are thinking of you and timelines to get you out if we need to get you out. Okay? That's why we're in warnings, not orders right now, okay? Where they're gonna bring the fire, all we have is about those 13 to 14 structures on South Fork that are really gonna be impacted with the plan, okay? Make sense? With that, when this goes into order, I wanna call Sergeant Hauser up so bad and put him on the spot, because I don't do road closures, but he has a plan of having to institute a road closure when we close that South Fork portion in the back, okay? It's not my jurisdiction, but there is a plan, and it'd be coordinated, okay? I hope that addresses closures, and I mean, everything's gonna go great, so we're not gonna have to worry about much more. Mineral King, Clay talked about it. Lots of discussion over Mineral King and Silver City. It is on our radar. What I will hit on with that question was, what are you going to do to save Silver City? My structure group, Brian Duffy, was also on the KMP. He was out in Silver City during the KMP, okay? He is also who I have on as a division for structure group now. He has already been out in Silver City. Our hand crew, Oak Valley Create, has been out there, and they've actually been along Mineral King. I think it's Cabin Cove, a couple others. I believe they're looking at some of the structures today. You are on our radar, because that's our responsibility to look after you guys. Okay, and we are. We are up front and ready for it. Tulare County Fire's here. We have a surge if we need it. We've got more apparatus ready to go to come up if needed. But all's gonna go, and we're gonna be happy, right? Good stuff. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Kevin. It really did help. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. So keep a look on our website, NC Web. Take a look at all the different agencies' social media accounts. Find out what's going on. If you got questions, put them in there. We'll answer you. Thank you again for really coming out here. I appreciate everyone being here. We're going to be around the room afterwards. Please come and talk to us. We're not going anywhere. Thank you, everybody online. Appreciate that. We're going to close this meeting out. Thank you again for coming out. Thank you.